A new Gaza hostage ceasefire deal is in the works in Cairo, and direct talks between the United States and Iran are set to begin. Here with more is Jewish News Syndicate correspondent Mike Wagenheim. Mike, thanks for being with us. President Trump met with Prime Minister Netanyahu recently, and he announced direct talks with Iran. So both Netanyahu and Trump suggested they'd like to see a nuclear deal with Iran, similar to one reached in 2003 with Libya. So tell us more. What are the prospects of reaching an agreement?
Well, a couple of points of context here, Gary, and thanks for having me on today. Number one, the Iranians have already thrown cold water on the idea that talks coming up on Saturday in Oman are going to be direct talks. They say it's going to be indirect, at least to begin with, and if they get a good sense that things are progressing, that maybe a deal can be struck, then they'd be willing to move on to direct talks. So a little bit of gamesmanship right there at the outset. There's definitely a difference of opinion here between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump. They're both in agreement that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but certainly I would say there's a disagreement, or at least a sort of a difference in how to approach the matter. Netanyahu said a diplomatic solution along the lines of what we saw with Libya many years ago could potentially work, but President Trump fashions himself as the ultimate deal maker here, and he's looking for a deal with Iran, and especially with some of the folks that he selected for his administration who are more wary about wars in the Middle East, about military action in the Middle East. They're looking more toward a diplomatic solution and maybe willing to pay a little bit higher cost for it here. I think the key in terms of the Iranian talks, and especially for Israel watchers, is to see, are the Iranians going to try to drag out the process again like they did with the Biden administration, constantly moving the goalposts, setting new standards, biding for time, essentially? I think this will be a key indicator for the Trump administration to watch for here. Are the Iranians going to stick to what's agreed upon, the preliminary parameters that may even be set up Saturday in Oman, or will they continue again to just kind of try to change the terms and the rules of the game as they go along? I think that will be more important than anything as to whether a deal can actually be struck or not.
Well, years ago, I covered Ronald Reagan, and he always said, trust but verify. So it seems like that's the issue. Iranian nuclear sites are likely to come under attack if an agreement isn't reached. So how united do you think Trump and Netanyahu are on that, a military response, and how would Arab countries react?
Well, the trust but verify thing with the Iranians has always been difficult because they don't allow verification in the way that the international community would like or has demanded, or that Iran has agreed to in the past. So verification has always been a problem, including this year when Iran was censured by the International Atomic Energy Agency Board of Governors because of their obstruction to verification processes that are on the books here. In terms of how the international community, the Arab community, is going to react, they've largely deferred thus far to President Trump on a lot of matters. There's been very little pushback thus far, except with the Gaza situation, and even then it was kind of tepid and around the edges. So I don't expect a particularly harsh reaction here to whatever Trump determines, especially given that he is willing to open up the door once again to diplomacy. It's really tough for Iran's neighbors, especially those that have a bone to pick with the mullahs to begin with, to say, well, you've opened up the door to talks here. You're willing to talk in good faith. If Iran doesn't comply, if they're continuing to obstruct here, I don't really know what kind of great pushback Trump's going to see here from Iran's neighbors, especially those that are so friendly with the Trump administration to begin with.